Welcome to Ken's Sewing Center, and today we're going to talk about the Coverpro 1000cpx. So your Coverpro actually comes with an instruction manual, which is always nice and handy to have right next to your Coverpro. It's going to go and review a lot of what we're going to talk about today. But a Coverpro, the initial thought about using a Coverpro is how you might hem up something, maybe garment or clothing, and it does that, gives you that professional appearance of your hems. This particular Coverpro does 2-thread Coverpro and 3-thread. It also does the chain stitch. And let's just do a quick stitch to see what I mean by a 2-thread or a 3-thread and talk a little bit about it. So right now we are already threaded. We will talk about threading shortly, but we're just going to take our fabric and place that under there, lower our presser foot, and stitch. When you come to the end of your fabric, whether you're stitching on a cuff or just on a flat piece of fabric, there are two ways that you can end or stop your stitching. And one way is to simply raise your presser foot, take your hand wheel, and turn your hand wheel backward. Now, sergers and cover stitch machines are the only machines that you can turn this backward. When you're on your regular sewing machine, you're always turning it towards you. But this one, actually, you can turn backward. And as you're turning that backward and you give your fabric a slight little pull, you can see those threads loosen up, and there's a thread cutter on that side. Okay. So here is our, let me get that thread tail, that beginning thread tail out of the way. So this is what we refer to as a 3-thread cover stitch. So you can see 3 rows of stitching on the top and all this thread underneath. That is the cover side of your stitch. The cover side meaning when you look at those garments or those projects that you have that have been hemmed up by a cover stitch, and let's say we were using this fabric right here. Here's the right side of our fabric, here's the wrong side. We of course would fold our hem to the wrong side. That cover side, all of this stitching on the underneath covers this raw edge. So there's no need for you to finish it any other way, whether on your sewing machine or a traditional serger. This will do all that in one step. So it hems it up and finishes this raw edge all at the same time. Okay, so let's give this a quick try. So we're going to just position this under here. And you can see here's our seam right here, our raw edge of our hem right there, and we're just going to stitch. Again, when you get to the end, you can chain off or simply raise the foot, turn the hand wheel backward. Again, you can do that on a cover stitch machine. Cut that. And there you can see how the raw edge of that hem is completely covered, hence the term. And again, this is doing a 3-thread cover. On your Coverpro 1000, you actually have a free arm. So this tray comes off, and now you have that free arm that makes stitching around pant legs, sleeves, even tops of bags and purses a breeze. So let's look back at this stitch right here, the 3-thread cover stitch. Now you actually can do a 2-thread cover stitch. If we take a look at the needle area, you'll notice that we have 3 needles in. So hence you have 3 rows of stitching. You can do 2-thread cover stitch. And you have options with respect to which 2 needles you use. You could easily remove this center row of stitching and have a wide cover stitch. You could remove one of these outside needles and have a narrow cover stitch. And a great thought of when you might use which version might be with respect to the size of the project that you're working on. So if you're hemming up something for an adult, that wide cover, again, if we remove that center row needle, you can see how wide that stitching would be. That might be an appropriate size for an adult. And hemming up a garment or a project for a little one, get rid of one of the outside needles and have a narrow cover stitch. So let's go to the narrow cover stitch, and we're actually going to get rid of our left needle. We're going to take this thread, cut this thread. Ooh, there we go, cut that thread. And we can just pull these out. Okay. So we're now down to just 2 threads. So 2 threads and the looper. And we do have to physically take that needle out. So there's a screw at the top that, of course, lefty-loosey to take the needle out. After you take the needle out, you do want to tighten that screw back up just so that it's held in there securely and so that it doesn't, I'll use the term, jiggle out or wiggle out as you're doing your serging. So again, to do that 2 thread, we remove the left needle because we want a narrow cover stitch. Put our fabric under there and let's stitch. And this will give you a good visual on the difference between a wide cover stitch and a narrow cover stitch. So there it is. So you can see how wide those 3 rows of stitching are. And obviously, since we removed the left needle, how narrow that is. And so depending on the size of the garment or the project that you're working on, either of those would be a good option depending on the size. Now let's talk just a little bit about the face of your Coverpro 1000. So we said that we can do up to 3 needles because we did that 3 thread cover stitch. So these 3 spools of thread are going to your needles, and that last spool of thread is going to your looper, and that is what is creating all of this thread on the bottom side. Your looper is down here. We'll show you how easy it is to thread shortly. But to open this up, you're just going to take your thumb in there, pull it directly to your right, and then roll it toward your belly. And there you can see how simple this is to thread. On the face of your Coverpro, you can also see these icons here showing you the different stitches. So the wide and the narrow and also the chain stitch will go to the chain stitch also. But you'll also see this little slide, and you see icons at the top of this section. One icon, the icon on the left, kind of looks like I'll use the term, a heavier garment, something with long sleeves and a long body to it. So think of like a regular shirt or even maybe a sweatshirt. And on the right-hand side, it looks a little softer, less fabric, maybe something like a camisole. So what this slide bar will do is make some adjustments internally to give you the best stitch on a thicker fabric or a thinner fabric. And a thinner fabric, think of a thinner fabric like a chiffon or a batiste. And the regular fabric, this long sleeved garment icon, that's perfect for your quilting cottons and all other fabrics that you might be working with. On the side, you have the stitch length option. And stitch length, of course, refers to how long these stitches are on the needle side of your stitching. And then the lower knob is your differential feed. As we know, knits stretch practically when we look at them. And if you're doing stitching on a knit, your knit can easily distort because of all the stitching. Differential feed, which is a great feature on your Coverpro, will allow you to not cause it to stretch and distort while you're stitching. Now, Coverpros are not just for serging, for hemming up garments. For example, you can actually quilt fabric together with your stitching. And let's just take this little piece of quilted sandwich. And so here's our batting, our backing, and our quilt top. So you could use your cover stitch to create a classic crosshatch on your fabric. Let's say that the gray is our top fabric, the green is our lining. And you say to yourself, I would love all of this stitching from that looper side to be on the right side of my project. So in this case, since the gray is our right side, we're actually going to put our fabric underneath the foot with the right side facing down. Now let's just stitch. Raise your foot and turn that hand wheel backward until those threads loosen up. So there's our first row of stitching. Now we can do another row. And so let's just use the width of our foot to do the spacing of our stitching. Raise our presser foot backward. So now if we do crosshatch, we could just stitch in the opposite direction, right? And actually quilt our fabric together using our Coverpro. And I'll stitch one more row, again separating it with simply by the width of our foot. You certainly can draw lines, and to follow those lines underneath your Coverpro, there are little ticks or little markings on your front toe of your foot. And those 3 ticks show you where your 3 rows of stitching or where your 3 needles are. So if you've drawn a line on your fabric and want to follow it, the markings on the toes will allow you to do that. Is that not cool? How you can embellish fabric with your Coverpro and then turn it into a project. So remember, we started with the 3 thread wide. We went down to 2 thread narrow. Now let's do the chain stitch. So the chain stitch is just a single needle. So we're going to get rid of that middle needle. Again, we can pull this till all our threads, till we're down to 2 threads. We're going to physically take that needle out, loosen the screw, take the needle out, and then tighten that screw back. And now the chain stitch, many times folks will say that it's like if you have a bag of dog food sealed. That's what a chain stitch will look like. So we're just going to take fabric and stitch. So this is the needle side, of course, because it looks just like traditional stitching. But on the bottom side, it is a heavier, thicker stitch. Put some fun threads in your looper, and you can have a great way once again, to quilt or top stitch a piece of fabric or a project that you're working on. So lots of options with respects to stitches that you can use with your Coverpro. Let's take a look at our lower looper just to show you how easy it is to thread. Then I'm going to show you how easy it is to thread a needle also. So again, the front opens up by just pulling it to your right and sliding it down. You have just the one looper down here, and oh my goodness, I just took it out of the eye of the looper, but not any issue at all. So your thread just comes straight down into the belly of your Coverpro. There are three little holes in three metal bars right there. And if you just turn your hand wheel, keep turning, they will eventually line up, and just with one movement with your tweezers, you can feed all those three holes together at the same time. Now to get to the looper, there is a little hook down at the bottom of this looper, and this kind of goes just like front to back. There is a hole at the top of this looper, just at the top of the spine of this looper, and that's just going to go right there. Let me grab that too. So there we go. But now how are we going to get to the eye of the looper? There's a gray button down here, and if you simply pull that gray button towards you, now you have clear and easy access to your looper. And we'll just take our tweezers, put it through the eye, grab that back there, and believe it or not, you just let this thread hang in the belly of your Coverpro. There is no need to pull it up to the top, just way too much work. But it will actually come up with your first stitch. One other great accessory that comes with your Coverpro is this needle threader. There's one end that will help hold your needle as you're reinserting the needles, but the other end is a tool that will help you thread your needle easily. There is a slot that goes horizontally on this needle threader. So you can see that needle threader there, horizontally like this. Now as you take this needle threader and slide it down the front of your needle with a little pressure, just a little pressure, when it gets to the eye of the needle, it'll just pop that little wire through there and pop your thread through there. So just like that. And grab that loop. So super easy to thread your loopers, super easy to thread your needles, a nice collection of options of stitches that you can use not only for garments, but also for embellishing fabric for whatever project you're working on. So you'll thoroughly enjoy the many, many years of use of your Coverpro 1000.